Hello, everyone. Happy St. Patrick's Day. My name is Allan Dick, and on behalf of my fellow CommerceNext co-founders, Scott Silverman and Veronica Sontsev, I want to welcome you to today's webinar. Today is Wednesday, March 17th, 2021, and our topic this week is Advanced Content Marketing Strategies from Publishers to Influencers. Before we start here, I'd like to introduce and welcome all of our speakers. First off, Natalie Brown. She's the head of marketing at Sur La Table. Alexis Caldwell, the head of brand development at rewardStyle. Emily Chan, head of affiliate marketing at Our Place. And Erin Killian, the VP of customer and agency services at Partnerize. I want to give some additional thanks. I want to thank our webinar sponsor, Partnerize. Thank you so much for sponsoring today. We certainly appreciate it. Our gifting sponsor is Gift Now. It's one of the Loop Commerce companies. They are giving away five gifts to 5 lucky attendees. The gifts are actually pretty sweet. There's some nice stuff in there. Also this week, very interesting, Sur La Table and Our Place are also chipping in an additional $50 gift card for each of the attendees today. Again, the replay listeners, out of luck. Sorry about that. But we do want to thank our audience. Thank you so much for being here today. We have over 400 people registered for this. This is one of the largest webinars we've had so far this year. So thank you very much for doing that and joining us. All right, let's look to next week. Scott Silverman takes the helm again. He's going to be bringing on Jeff Gerstle, the CMO of B&H Photo Video, Matt Hayes, the co-founder of The Fascination, Brandon Gell, the co-founder and CEO of Clyde, and Sherry Kuo, the head of growth at Italic. And they're going to be discussing building loyalty with newly acquired customers. That's going to be Wednesday, March 24th, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific. And you can learn more at bit.ly/CNWeb32. CommerceNext is on YouTube. We have over 100 videos there on all aspects of digital retail marketing. We drop a new video pretty much every Thursday. Head over there, like, subscribe, wake the kids, tell the neighbors. Definitely worth checking out. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Erin Killian, the VP of Customer and Agency Services at Partnerize. How are you doing? Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day to you as well. Thank you so much for having us today. I'm super excited about being here.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one today. So I'm going to turn it over to you without any further ado. Erin, take it away.
So thank you guys so much for being a part of today's presentation. Really, the intent of what we're here to talk about is about content optimization. Really, where did this stem from? I know historically we've come to the table to talk about why it is that so many of our marketers and brands want to be able to diversify their portfolios. There's a movement away from just the idea of focusing on bottom of funnel activities and really shifting that awareness more towards top of funnel activities, looking for new consumers and finding new and innovative ways to be able to look at partners. So really what we're here today is to give you a little bit about who I am and who Partnerize is, just to help set the stage, better understand why is there such a shift towards content. Quite frankly, how is it performing today, and why is it something that so many of us as marketers are looking to be able to capitalize on? Who are those key driving partner types that we're looking for within that realm of content to be able to work with? And quite frankly, what we all really want to be able to talk about, and where our panel discussion is going to be, how do we optimize with them? There are a number and myriad of different ways to be able to optimize. So really what we want to dive into are some of the things that we're seeing, and then kind of look and pull to you guys, kind of see how else you guys are focusing on those relationships. So first off, who am I? For those of you guys that may not know who I am, I'm Erin Killian, and I oversee brand and agency relationships within Partnerize. I have been with the organization for over a decade. I'd actually probably rather not share the exact time frame, but I have a myriad of experience within the channel and have been very excited to be an educator, a consultant, and a guide, not only to the clients I work with, but the agencies. Really, what I do is to help identify ways to optimize with different partners, whether through technology, other mechanisms, as well as understanding how our brands, how our agencies can continue to grow in the channel. For those of you guys, just to give a quick snapshot into my history, I've locked out my pets so they won't join us today, and actually am planning a wedding in the middle of COVID. Talk about an additional stress for no apparent reason. Now, who's Partnerize? Partnerize is a platform technology that allows brands, marketers, agencies to be able to connect to partners, to forge relationships, to be able to measure and act against specific KPIs and goals. We're global. We represent a number of different countries, locations, fantastic experts, and have a very robust partner database for our brands to be able to capitalize on and grow on a regular and fantastic capacity. So let's start to really get into here. We're talking about content optimization, but at the end of the day, why is it that we're looking to optimize with content? How is content performance changing? And why is it that we want to be able to grow on that? So to give you guys some insight, Partnerize's database of relationships is truly immense. We represent over 750,000 different partnerships, over 200,000 different influencers, and that's growing every day. Having been within the space, I've seen a very marked shift in the types of relationships that are coming within the channel to allow for marketers, brands, and agencies to be able to shift their focus and change what types of relationships that ultimately they're looking to be able to drive against. As marketers are looking to diversify what it is they're looking to do in the channel, that idea of diversification and pushing more towards upper funnel activity, new consumer acquisition, and out of the box relationships is in turn driving that same type of growth from a partner perspective into different technology bases. Something that we've seen as a platform is that some of those more traditional relationships that those of us who've been in the industry a while know, we're seeing less of those relationships joining us. And instead, we're seeing a true focus on more content and social media partners joining the technology. And really that's driven by you guys as marketers in changing your own strategy and reevaluating the value you put on your types of partners and ultimately where you want to focus on. Now, while we talk about these partners and their influx in for brands to be able to manage and mitigate against, something I'm sure many of you guys have faced is how to be able to connect with those partners in an innovative way. And are those connections happening? So you guys are probably like, well, Erin, what exactly is a connection? A connection represents an active relationship between a partner and a brand. And something that we're seeing is that as more content providers, content aggregators, and e-commerce content solutions are coming into the space, is that there are more relationships and connections being forged. One of the key elements we're going to talk through in optimization is communication, fostering strong relationships. And as you guys can see, the channel is evolving and we're seeing far more active connections specifically driving out of content providers between brands and marketers in order to achieve specific KPIs and goals that you guys are looking to accomplish. Now, we're talking about this idea of the data. Why do we want to work with content? How are things shifting? One of the other key drivers that we're seeing within the space that, again, we're going to talk through in optimization is the fact that commissions are also shifting. That idea of how do we pay a partner is changing. As people look to assign value differently to the relationships within their own consumer, funnels, and how is that looking? The evaluation and how people are evaluating relationships with content is really being shown in how commissions are ultimately being assigned. What we're seeing is that commissions by per advertiser, per content provider is growing, and that overall, the overarching share of voice for content from a commission standpoint is significantly increasing. What does that mean? It means that there's more budget being invested into those content providers in order to better show the value that they're driving, better look at specific KPIs, whether it's revenue, increased brand awareness, new consumer acquisition, what we're seeing is that in order to focus on those KPIs, that brands, marketers are willing to invest more dollars in order to better achieve those results. You know, something that we're seeing and some of our more recent data is pointing to is that content's overall share of voice is growing significantly from a year-over-year status. If you look at some of our data, what we were seeing even last week is that content's overall share was up over 26% from a year-over-year standpoint. And something else to call out is that some of the share of voice for the, some of the more traditional relationships is shifting, and that there's more of an onus on this idea of content. More budget is being invested into these relationships. There's more onus to make these connections. But at the end of the day, how does that tie back into some other items to help you guys determine, how do we want to work with these partners? Are they really going to drive value for us? Something else to kind of call out for you guys as you're looking to optimize and work with these partners is, how are they driving sales? Historically, as people look to diversify, one of the key call-outs has always been, is content really driving overall revenue? How are they impacting sales on behalf of a brand? How impactful are they? And as we're seeing this, this entire e-commerce space shift as a result of the past year and this pandemic that's really helped to change some of the consumer buying patterns, is that content providers are actually driving, more sales, more engaged in that consumer path, and ultimately are actually driving those single sales. They're not just a part of a sales path. In many cases, what we're seeing is that the sales are being driven singly on behalf of those partners. So we've seen a real shift from where the market has been, as people are looking to diversify and focus on these new and different types of relationships in the space. Now, I've talked a little bit about, where are we coming from in order to, optimize. And we've talked about this idea of content and optimization, but who and what exactly do we mean by content? For each of us as marketers, we may define content differently. So when we're talking specifically today about content and optimization with these relationships, there are really three key elements that we're working with and that we're looking at from this lens. So one, your commerce content providers; two, your influencers; and then three, your content syndicators. So what do we mean by commerce content? These are your more traditional mass media relationships, your BuzzFeeds, your Business Insiders, your Merediths, your Daily Beasts. These are your more traditional media, different entities that monetize their editorial and digital content in a different type of capacity. This is a different type of animal than, let's say, your influencers. When we look at influencers, these tend to be different sites that are driven by social media, by a profound amount of additional content, not strictly driven by editorial content, and traditionally work and engage with consumers where they're doing product review, they're incentivizing the consumer in some type of capacity, and they're looking to get their consumers engaged with their different interaction. And then finally, your content syndicators, such as rewardStyle, who I'm excited to be on the panel with today. Content syndicators are larger business entities that work with the smaller content aggregators, whether they're bloggers, they could be social media sites, your vloggers, even down to your TikTokers. They represent and they're able to help those smaller, more content syndicators, even some of the larger ones, better monetize their relationship with the brand. And instead of a brand needing to go direct to those micro influencers within them, they're able to better engage and work with the content syndicator in order to best reach that consumer audience. Now, when we start thinking about optimization, before we talk about some of the unique techniques and some things we'll get into with the panel today, is that there are definitely some key considerations that we have to think about. For those of you guys that have been in this space for a while, working with other types of partners may have a set group of parameters that you get to work with. There's a set methodology to think about, and you know, there's just a mechanism to kind of move through that. As we start thinking about these unique different types of content providers, there are different things that we have to look at. One, to make sure that we're level setting expectations. Two, that we're setting up budgets in a great way. And third, to be able to think about what are some of the levers that we're going to be able to pull when we are trying to work with these partners in order to better grow, optimize, and exceed expectations with them. So let's start with our commerce content providers. You know, these are fantastic, you know, with reach. They're publishers that are news, entertainment sources. They're really about building brand awareness. They can have a great impact on e-commerce, but they are also very much so driven by editorial content and led by their editorial staff. They need to stay true to themselves and their own voice when working with brands and marketers. So you have to understand that you may not be able to just ask one of these sites to be able to work with you. They have to make sure that the content that they're working with fits the look and feel of their own media, that it feels like it's a natural extension of that. In addition to that, because it is more editorial driven, in a lot of cases, those partners may require flat fee dollars to be able to work with versus some of the traditional pay-per-performance models that a lot of us really look to be able to leverage with. You know, so we always recommend understanding how that relationship with some of those partners work, just to kind of level set how and what you can do. Now we're going to talk a little bit about those influencers before we talk about some of the optimization techniques. Influencers are a great way to reach your consumer and to work with them in a way that, you know, makes it feel as though you guys are a friend. It really helps to introduce a brand pretty seamlessly with the consumer and helps to give a feeling of, wow, that's how it all works. Now, when working with influencers, though, there are some key considerations to kind of think about. You know, how do they prefer to be paid? What type of merchandise would they like to work with? Unlike some of the commerce content providers, influencers can be driven by commissions with product reviews and with merchandise in order to work with them. We'll kind of talk about that in optimization. But one key consideration, something to think about, is that because this is more engaging and more connected to the consumer, we do have to think about and make sure that that consumer understands that you as a brand may be working to pay that influencer on their behalf. And so something that we always, you know, remind our different marketers, brands, advertisers to think about is, how do you want to disclose and work with those partners to make sure that they're within FTC guidelines? As our entire e-commerce space is changing, different security protocols, different mechanisms with consumer privacies and consumers understanding how these processes work, that you want to make sure that you're disclosing that and working with those partners in a succinct way in order to get the best benefit of that. And then finally, as you guys are starting to think about when we're thinking about these optimization techniques, are your content syndicators. They're a great way to be able to reach a large amount of content providers in a scalable mechanism to be able to work with them. But as you guys can imagine, especially over the course of the past year, there's a lot more noise within the space. There are a lot more brands, a lot more people vying for the voice of these different content providers. So being able to know that you may need to have increased commissions to be able to work with these partners, as well as understand that depending on your own brand and who you are, you may need to work with someone within those organizations in order to facilitate deeper, more meaningful relationships with the influencers and with the sites within their own syndicated platforms. You know, so understanding what that is looking for, how do you define that, as well as working with those different, you know, that idea of the middleman to better understand what are their providers, what are their content creators need in order to be able to work with you guys. So before we even get to the idea of, well, how do I ultimately optimize with these partners in a way that makes sense, we also have to make sure we understand what are some of the key considerations when we're talking to them. So we're going to talk about some optimization techniques. And really, a lot of this is also going to tie back into the conversation with the larger group, which I'm really excited about. And I'm excited to hear from you guys as well, some of the actions that you guys do. And one of the things you guys will notice as we get into this is that even though we have these 3 key considerations for each of these 3 unique content providers, there are a lot of techniques that are the same across all of these relationships. Just because we're working with commerce content doesn't mean you're going to optimize with them necessarily differently than you would with an influencer or a content syndicator. In a lot of cases, the core competencies that come with optimization are true to any of their relationships that we're looking to be able to build. So, what are some of the optimization techniques that we see on a regular basis? Having worked within our own group and having worked with a number of different agencies, there are some things that we can help to kind of better bring to the table that we're seeing. So what you guys are seeing are some of those key optimization techniques that you have to be able to engage and work with each of these groups in a different capacity. I won't necessarily dive into all of them in a ton of detail because some of them we're going to discuss more in the panel, but some things to think about are, one is communication. Developing a unique communication cadence to be able to cut through the clutter, be able to share branded materials. Who are you? What does your brand represent? What can you offer to those different types of content providers to better work with them? When we're talking about communication and branded materials, they go hand in hand. How are you communicating with those partners and what type of information are you disseminating? In a world where we are, quite frankly, constantly communicating and constantly engaged with one another, making sure that we have, a concise message, who you are, what are the things that you guys can do and offer in this space, what helps to set you apart, and what are the unique ways that you can engage with those different types of relationships is going to be paramount to be able to kind of work with them, as well as engaging in a robust communication strategy to make sure that those partners know exactly, how to get a hold of you, how to be able to reach you in an effective manner, and that you're not just utilizing one form of communication to be able to outreach to them. Email's great, but a lot of us are overwhelmed with that. So are there other mechanisms, whether it's Slack, quite frankly, picking up a phone call, or even in some cases, hosting regular monthly webinars with your partners to help keep them engaged and wanting to work with the brand? Some other optimization techniques are thinking about diversified tracking mechanisms, and some things that we'll get into as well with the idea of technology and commission strategies is how do you track back to be able to better work with that different type of partner? How do you track that engagement, whether it's a sale, whether it's some type of higher level brand awareness, likes? What are some of the mechanisms you can use to better track back? Can you work with partners in different and innovative ways, such as code tracking, being able to better focus on change click path positioning for partners? How you better reward and diversify how you can track back those different types of engagements with each of your partners is a way to further optimize and incentivize them in different capacities. In addition to that is I put new consumer acquisition on optimization techniques because we know that new consumers are really being driven through this idea of content engagement. And so new consumer acquisition could be looking at your partners who have a different type of consumer base, engaging with them to do more product reviews, looking at specific type of opportunities that they can tailor through podcasts, different videos, different ways to identify new consumer sets and present new product opportunities, more brand engagement, different ways to kind of get those partners involved, and looking and kind of seeing what else can we do, which also ties into paid engagements, and commission strategies I'll get into in a second. How else can you guys better optimize with a partner than asking and saying, how else can we work together? What can you do? Do you have a consumer audience that we can do an Instagram post to? Some type of, paid newsletter, maybe a product review. What are there additional things that a different partner can do outside of just promoting you whenever they want? Having open dialogues in order to better work together, in order to kind of see how it is you guys can do. And that ties into consumer engagement opportunities. Probably like, Erin, what does that mean? Consumer engagement means getting your consumers involved, contests, reviews, giveaways with these partners in order to get consumers excited about your brand. I'm a consumer. I love to be involved in something where I can, maybe enter a contest, maybe have the opportunity to be first involved for new items, new categories to be able to work with. So asking and talking to your partners about, can we do something different to be able to, reach a new set of audiences? And then utilizing these different types of optimization techniques with each of your partners differently. Whether you're working with a BuzzFeed or rewardStyle, you may be pulling different levers in order to better work with each of those different consumer segments. And then that really ties back to the other optimization techniques of testing and measurement. So at the end of the day, you have to constantly test new and innovative things with each of your partners, and then quite frankly, tie it back to be able to understand, what does that performance look like? Measuring and understanding, are you getting the specific KPIs and goals that are most important to you? And then looking to kind of re-engage and develop strategies as you guys find things that are working better and continuing to test and dive into more. Now, in addition to these optimization techniques that are a little bit broader and more holistic in your approaches, don't forget, I'm a technology provider. And what we do is to offer you guys technologies to better reward your partners at different points in that life cycle in order for them to earn in different capacities. So the other item is making sure that you're leveraging your technology in a way that makes sense, and even the commissioning opportunities you have. So for instance, within the Partnerize world, we have methodologies with our exclusive code tracking and dynamic commissioning to help better change the narrative. Pay the right partner that you guys want at the right time for the right type of activity. So whether you guys want to work with a TikToker who is, maybe doing a product review, having a really engaged time with the audience, and they speak to a code that you can track back, you don't have to worry about that click. You're leveraging the technology and then do it in an innovative way to be able to break down some of those traditional barriers that have come with e-commerce. Can you leverage your commissions in innovative ways so that you're not just paying everybody, hey, here you go, everybody gets 10%, but instead, what types of partners can you incentivize? We know that a lot of our influencers are driven by commission increases. Can you leverage and utilize different rules and different commission strategies to pay out differently for a specific item that they're promoting on your behalf, a different category, maybe new arrivals? So optimization is not just about let's develop communication strategies, measuring, but it's also about leveraging your technology in a way to better reward these partners so that they can actualize the value in the relationship with you guys. One of the reasons we're seeing so much content growth is the fact that technology is allowing those partners to be able to be better rewarded and for you guys to better assign that overarching value to those relationships. Now, I know I put a lot in this, but I also know that we've got a fantastic panel coming up. So Allan, I'll give that back to you because I know I've been chatting for a little while.
No worries, no worries. Thank you so much, Erin. We're going to head over to our polls right now, and let's start. This is where we bring you in, audience. Let us know what your thoughts are. Question 1, what are your top goals for your content marketing? You can choose all that apply. Boost brand awareness, drive sales, expand reach, increase interactions, or improve loyalty? Looks like 37-ish% do it to drive sales, but right behind it is to boost brand awareness at 27%, and expanding reach is at 18%. Increase interactions is 11%, and improve loyalty is 8%. I think we're going to close that one. Moving right along. Question number 2. How much more or less will you spend on content partnership marketing this year versus 2020? How much more or less will you spend on content and partnership marketing this year versus 2020? Will it be a much higher spend? Will it be somewhat higher spend? No change. Somewhat lower spend, or a much lower spend? Very, very definitely skewed to the top here. Much higher spend is 25%. Somewhat higher spend is 58%. No change is 15%. And somewhat lower and much lower each got 1% each. Definitely looks like there's going to be some more investment in there. All right. I think what I want to do is I want to get over to the panel. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Great to have you all here. Let's start introducing some folks here. Let's start with Natalie. Natalie, why don't you take it away? Give us a quick introduction.
Yeah, thanks so much, Allan. Hi, everyone. I'm Natalie Brown, and I run brand marketing and the creative team over at Sur La Table. And so under the brand marketing umbrella, we have our paid social, our own social channels. So all of our organic social, where we work really heavily with influencer content creators.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Emily.
Hi, I'm Emily Chan. I'm head of affiliate at Our Place. So I focus on booking paid influencer partnerships as well as publisher partnerships and managing our overall affiliate network in Pepperjam.
Outstanding. And Alexis.
Hey guys, I'm Alexis Caldwell, head of brand development at rewardStyle and Like to Know It. We are the largest technology platform for digital lifestyle influencers. We empower influencers to monetize their content cross-channel and also empower our brands to leverage those influencers at scale to promote their brands, products, and activities.
Outstanding. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. I want to turn to the retailers and get them into the conversation. Natalie, can you give us a little bit of background on your content partner programs, the size, the scope, the philosophy, objectives?
Yes, so we definitely have an affiliate program that we run, but the program that I spend most time on is our influencer program, as I mentioned, on our own social channels. And that's a really important part of the program. It's not a big program. We tend to work with highly curated folk who are very engaged and passionate about our brand, understand the space, and can really deliver high quality content to help either introduce new products or inspire our customers with new and exciting ways to use products that they may have in their kitchen, or also ideas for cooking classes, so inspiring people to come in and take a class and learn from us. So that's one big area. And then the other area that's interesting, because I consider it a content creation partnership, but that is actually with our vendors and the chefs who are on our staff, because that close connection to the vendors and getting their input. They know their product like no one else does. So getting their input on the content side, and often they do have people on their teams who can create really high value content for me, is another area where I can get content that is very low cost, but drives really high engagement and can also drive sales because it really lays things out for the customers.
Outstanding. Emily, let's kick the same question to you.
Yeah, of course. So at Our Place, within the content partner programs, we focus on revenue driving influencers. So we're usually sticking to the micro and lower end of the macro side in terms of influencers. We occasionally test with larger influencers. It just depends on, what product we're focusing on and who we're trying to reach. We have a core list that we partner with over multiple months, as we find it turns them into true brand advocates. It also incentivizes incentivizes organic coverage. The more that you invest in influencers and foster that relationship, we often see great results. And then we also focus on top tier content publishers that we have great relationships with. We're always keeping them up to date with brand news, key launches, offering to send them samples, really bringing them into fold and kind of giving them a sneak peek before a larger audience knows about our launches.
Outstanding. One of the things that has kind of surprised me is just this massive shift from cashback and incentive partners to content partners. I was taking a look back at a webinar we held back in November, and we asked our audience how their affiliate program revenue would change in 2021. 77% said that content partners would be more important. 17% said that content and cashback partners would be of equal importance, but only 6% would be that coupon and cashback partners would be more important. So I'm going to open this up to the panel. I'll ask the retailers first. Even though cashback and coupon affiliates are in decline, is there any value to be found here? I know the retailers on our panel may not be as thrilled with it. Emily?
We don't work with the majority of coupon publishers or loyalty publishers within our affiliate network. It's just not our focus. We're not focusing on a discount customer. Our product is a little, our AOV is higher priced due to our product price. And so, that's why our focus is on content and, helping to tell our story with our brand. So yeah, ultimately that's not our focus within our affiliate program.
Yeah, Natalie?
Yeah, I'd echo that. I think we've also seen our focus shift more to content partnerships. I think you get a higher quality customer. You're not getting someone who's coming in for the discount, and when you're buying a really good set of cookware, you want someone who's going to believe in the product and become a loyalist and grow with your brand. So bringing someone in through the non-discount side is, I think, for us also more valuable.
Mm-hmm. Erin, any thoughts on this?
No, I think something that we're seeing is that marketers are just taking a different approach to how they look at their portfolios. It's about shifting perceptions and ultimately shifting goals. As more and more brands are looking at building brand awareness, new consumer acquisition, and building out unique and different partnerships, I think what you're seeing is just an advent towards that focus on top of funnel, more content-driven opportunities in order to help shape and focus on those key deliverables ultimately.
Alexis, I'm going to bring you into the conversation with my next question. What would you say are the best practices for working with influence? We kind of talked about the content marketers in Erin's presentation. You certainly have the experience with the influencers.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of 3 hot tips for you. So number 1, cast influencers based on data. And this is really important. We oftentimes, when we're starting out working with a retailer who has dabbled in influencer marketing before, they've tried to cast their own campaigns based on follower size. But we have over 10 years worth of data on actual conversions and actual sales, how influencers are really performing, how they how they're converting for competitors, converting for different categories. And so we're able to really identify who's going to be able to drive conversions versus just branding and awareness. The second tip is let influencers have creative license. So I know this is tough sometimes for our brand partners, especially when they're super particular about their branding and how their branding perception. But at the end of the day, the influencers are promoting your product because they're really excited about it and they want to share it with their audiences, and they know their audiences best. And so they are able to really position the messaging in a way where their audiences will be most likely to respond positively and therefore purchase the product. Hot tip number 3 is to engage influencers in longer term commitments. Often brands will work with influencers one-off, here for a sale or here for a product launch. What we've really found is engaging influencers in long-term relationships as brand ambassadors will cause the influencers to create more content about your brand, even outside of dedicated contracts that you may have with them, and engender loyalty with that influencer. So they're more likely to post that content and also really create loyalty with that influencer's audience. They get used to seeing your brand mentioned by that influencer and are thus more likely to convert as well.
Yeah, that came up quite a bit in the prep call, and I want Emily and Natalie to jump in there because they said, "Oh yeah, definitely do that." Natalie, you had some thoughts about that I thought were nice, because it is really about it's not just about hiring the influencers. It's an entire engagement. It's treating them like, heaven forbid, actual human beings. Natalie, take it away.
Yeah, exactly. I think, to your point, treat them like human beings and treat them. So for us, we really go in and we try and curate people and pick people who already are passionate about our brand, already are tagging our brand, already know our brand. So when they start working with us, it's not a giant shift. It's not that they're talking about our brand when they haven't talked to us before, about us before, to their audiences, right? So there's that natural integration already. And then secondly, I totally agree, let them do their own thing, but I also think provide some guidelines. So we've got like little mini brand guides. For example, an Instagram story. If you're going to create an Instagram story for us, here are some of the sort of parameters. So you give them guardrails so things aren't wildly crazy, but then yes, trust, because to your point, Alexis, they fans follow them for a reason. And then thirdly, I'd say it's that relationship building. So do nice things, treat them well, and just keep a relationship going, and don't treat it like this monetized transaction. Again, like you said, these are people, they're passionate about your brand, so inspire them as well, and the rewards will be amazing.
Mm-hmm. Emily, I see you nodding feverishly there. Any more to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, just to add, same with us. It's when you're building those long-term relationships, you're also building validity for your product, because they've been supporters of your brand for a while. And so it shows to their community that they truly resonate with your brand, and they're, ultimately more likely to purchase as they see that organic coverage coming over multiple months. So we're all about building long-term partnerships, building those relationships. And I definitely have, a handful, or a little more than a handful, of influencers in our back pocket who we maintain very close relationships with. So it's something that we feel is very important to our program.
Cool. We have a lot. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. There are also some efficiencies to be gained by engaging influencers long-term. Emily and I'm sure you have experienced, we saw for one of our partners a 37% in cost savings because they contracted influencers at the beginning of 2020. And over the course of the year, those influencers' rates went up because they're growing naturally throughout the year and into holiday. And so looking back, there was a 37% savings, which is crazy just for contracting in advance.
And there's another area as well that for cost savings, right? And so an example is we may work with an influencer. I'm thinking we're launching a new Vitamix, right? So we send them a $700 blender. But if we keep the relationship going, we can find different ways for them to develop content for the Vitamix blender. And so it's not sending a new blender to an influencer every time we want to do something. We can go back to that influencer and say, hey, do something new and different. Put on your thinking cap, step out of just the smoothie zone and get creative for us with this product. But so there's the savings, on the sample side too, because seeding product is part of the cost that you have to consider when building an influencer program. And depending on what it is, that can be sizable.
Yep, definitely.
Absolutely. We're going to turn to the audience questions here in just a minute, although I do want to ask one quick question here. And I think this is definitely going to be something folks want to know about. How are you guys measuring the performance of your programs? This is a toss-up question. Anyone can go in it. First one to speak goes. Natalie. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it depends on what the project is, what the task at hand is. So if it's a new product launch, obviously we're going to be looking at sales of the product, and we'll do things like use tracking links and be looking at traffic sources and things like that. I think if it's sometimes we use influence for something that's more general. It has a theme or a topic, because we just want to develop content that is engaging and that's more for brand awareness. Or we'll specifically do something like a sponsored giveaway because we want to bring new followers. So then we'll be measuring follower counts. So I think we base the KPIs on the goal of the specific engagement, and then look at the tactics and measure those and see how that rolls up to support and success.
Outstanding. Emily, any additional thoughts on that?
Yeah, same for us. It really does depend. The influencers that we're booking on the affiliate side are to specifically drive revenue, but we also have a whole other side of our influencer program, which is specific to brand influencer and building brand awareness. Like we'll often, book creators to do IG lives. And that the goal of that is not to drive conversion. The goal of that is to, dig deeper into what our partner story is, how it relates back to our brand, and just, finding different angles to tell our brand story. So yeah, it depends on the scope of work and the internal KPI there.
All right, cool. All right, let's turn to the audience. We asked them for questions. We got to start answering them. From Tracy Gross, thank you so much for asking a question. Her question is, how can we get content partners to partner through affiliate? A lot of them say they do not work through affiliate, or they will only work through VigLink or Skimlinks, or they will only accept flat fees. That one's to the group. You can beat that one to death or pass. Any thoughts?
I definitely have some thoughts there. So
go for it.
Well, VigLink and Skimlink are affiliate. That's a sub-affiliate. And often top tier publications really only like to link through Skimlinks, and that's fine with us as long as you're able to get that report from Skimlinks so you can see the revenue tied to each publisher. I don't see any harm in that. There are publishers who only want to work on a flat fee, which sometimes we do entertain. It depends on the historical performance from that partner. We usually don't go in blind. So if it's a publisher that we've never worked with and we don't have historical data to look at, then we usually don't just like throw a flat fee at them and see what will happen. So sometimes I'll go back and negotiate and see if we can maybe do a flat fee and affiliate. So that there's sort of a hybrid model. So yeah, I think that it depends on who you're working with, but I would definitely try and test first before you're investing a large amount of dollars.
All right. Any other thoughts on that before we move on? Going once, going twice. All right. So we have a whole question set here for scaling, and Sean Macbeth is asking, what are your top methods for scaling performance-based content approaches, given that content tends to be a highly manual process from publisher outreach all the way through publishing? So it's definitely the scaling question. Natalie, you want to take that one? Start with that?
Yeah, I mean, scaling is definitely time consuming, and she's completely hit the nail on the head there. There are a lot of facets to it. So I think we do it in various ways. We obviously use an agency, so that helps. And I think you almost have to, just given the number of potential partners out there, it sort of has to have a tech stack behind it to help manage it. On the organic side, for our organic content creators, we tend to just keep the stable pretty small and tight and have a core group of people that we work with across the different size bands of influencers. And so I think that is how we sort of manage it, is a balance of internal resources for the really sort of very, very curated content that's developed for our feed, perhaps, and then using agencies for some of the more bigger scale partnerships.
All right, Emily, any additional thoughts on that?
Yeah, we do use some agencies for when we're trying to work with a lot of influencers, because you're exactly right. It can take a lot of time. We also use some of our tools to help with that communication. So We, have a tool that stores all of our affiliate and press contacts so that anytime we have brand news, we can reach out to them very quickly without having to send like 100 different emails. And then we also have another tool specifically for influencers that we're also doing some, communication management in there. But I'm not going to lie, my inbox is constantly flooded and I'm always underwater on emails. So it's affiliate marketing. And when you're working with influencers is very relationship heavy. It's just, it's just how it is. I would say like invest in your team so that you have more people on the team to help with all of that relationship management.
Yeah. Erin, I see you kind of leaning in there.
No, what I was going to say is also invest in your technology to create that scalability. You're utilizing agencies to do that and technologies to find those partners and communicate them. That's something Partnerize can do. That's one of our core benefits is to be able to create those efficiencies. It's about creating an easier way because what we do is relationship building. 1,000 emails to have to reply to can be challenging, but finding those defined mechanisms and then having it in a single place to be able to manage against, whether it's the brand or the agency, there are additional mechanisms. So it's not just that strict one-on-one, and leveraging that to better get there just helps you get you to the goal faster.
Okay. Speaking of scaling, and sometimes one asks a question one knows is incorrectly phrased, but clearly an influencer with 1 million followers is clearly worth 10 times more than one with 100,000 followers. Right, panel? Here it comes. Who wants to beat on that one first?
I'm sure Alexis has a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say Alexis will know this one.
So that's a really, really great question. That's where data really comes in handy, historical performance data. It's crazy. We'll have an influencer who has 1 million followers, but they'll only see like 10 conversions from a campaign because they're just really strong in terms of awareness and branding and being top of funnel. But then we'll have another influencer who has, say, 60,000 Instagram followers, but who converts like crazy and actually sells over $1 million in goods. So it really depends on how engaged that audience is with the authentic content of the individual influencer. And you can't really determine that based solely on followers. It's really around performance data, which is an area that we help with.
Yeah, and I'm going to add on to that because I think that's where the connection with the brand comes in and is so important, and why, even if you pick up a huge influencer, if they're cold and they've never once expressed interest in your brand or your category, it's just so alien for them suddenly to be talking about your products and your brand in their feed, and people get that. They look at the feed and they're like, why is this person posting about this brand or these products? So I think the real key is finding that genuine connection, that true affinity, and being very picky about the people you work with. Work with people who have engaged followings and who are very active in your space and who are true to your brand and your products and the message that you're trying to get out there.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't shy away from the smaller influencers. Oftentimes it's the smaller ones that do have really high conversion rates because their community is smaller and they're really engaged with that content. From what I've seen, sometimes when you're working with really large influencers that have, 1 million and up following, a lot of times their community is following them for inspiration, for the aesthetic of their feed. It's pretty when they're scrolling through, but they're not necessarily shopping from those influencers. So before we cast, we always try and get as much data as we can on each influencer. So we're looking at conversion rate, how many unique visitors they have on their blog. We're asking which channel they typically see the most conversions on, if they have that. So we're really trying to get as much information as we can on that influencer before we make an investment.
And actually, I've got one more thing to add as well. I have also found that sometimes the smaller influencers come up with maybe more interesting ideas. They sometimes get a bit more scrappy with what you're asking them to do and come up with content that's maybe a little bit more interesting, because I think they're hungry and trying to build their following. So they're a little bit more willing to maybe take risks and try something new. So you sometimes get much more interesting content that can be even more engaging from the slightly smaller influencers.
Yeah, outstanding. We are getting close to the top of the hour, but I would be remiss if I didn't take at least one question from Courtney Pearson for two reasons. One, she's asked about 50 questions. And secondly, she complimented me on my voice at the beginning of this. So clearly, being susceptible to flattery, I'm definitely going to get one of her questions in. Question she has is, how are we thinking the dependence on volume off last click will evolve as the channel moves towards top of the funnel and those content relationships? Affiliate leads cannot lose that revenue without understanding the long-term impact and opportunity, right?
It's
Take
about
it away.
So I think one of those mechanisms comes back to how are you able to reward them? You know, what type of tracking and different mechanisms are you able to reward those top of funnel activities in order to better actualize that revenue? You know, I think, you know, the space is changing. There are multi-touch attribution solutions, different ways to reward along that click path. So I think diving into those data solutions to better understand and then to automatically reward them is what has helped to drive this. So I think you're going to continue to see that. But I also think that you're going to probably see more of those traditional partners also shift their own focuses to add more content, to add more to the conversation as a whole. So I think you're going to see it continue to evolve. But as we as technology providers continue to give more to brands to be able to work with, and as they can dive into their data in a more succinct way, we're going to see more top of funnel activity and more of these relationships continue to flourish.
That's great. Well, we are at the top of the hour. We had a lot of questions coming in. No one has to commit to this right now, but I'm highly likely to approach you guys afterwards with some of these questions to see if we can answer them, because there's a lot of good ones here, and I'm really sorry we couldn't get to them all. But I will end with this, and this is going to be the rapid fire one. Everyone gets to go. What can retailers do right now to improve their content or partner marketing efforts? What's the one takeaway you want to share with them? Erin, you're first.
Communication, it's king. While we are inundated with communication every day in every form, the truth is that to have a strong communication plan, make sure that you're not just communicating via email. Literally pick up the phone, like text me. That's what my clients do all the time. Having that is going to be paramount to make sure that you continue to build these relationships.
Alexis, you're next.
Test. This space is all about testing, especially as new technologies roll out. So much going on with video and TikTok. There's a lot of testing to be done. And sometimes, you know, what you believe may generate really great results, like an influencer with 1 million followers, may not actually be the necessary fit for your brand. So you need to be able to have a certain budget set aside for testing.
Outstanding. Natalie.
I'd say understand what's working and what's not working. So really dig into your content every month, take a really good look at it. And then also use other tools to find interesting new influencers. So things like social listening, see who's out there, who's already tagging your brand, already engaging in meaningful conversations, and find those people and bring those into your influencer program.
All right, Emily, you get the last word. I put you in the worst position because everyone's taking all the great stuff. So here you go. Here's your time to shine.
I agree on all of those. I would also say test across channels. So what works in affiliate may also work on your wider paid channels, and you can really juice what you've paid for already and get the, you know, the maximum ROI on that.
Outstanding. Well, we are past time, so we're going to wrap this up fast. I just want to thank our speakers, Emily Chan from Our Place, Alexis Caldwell from rewardStyle, Natalie Brown from Sur La Table, and Erin Killian from Partnerize. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Thank you to Partnerize for sponsoring. We've got their handouts. We've got the slides up there for you to download. And with that, thank you to our audience. I hope everyone has a great St. Patrick's Day, and we will see you next week. Take care, everyone.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.